Who comes to your mind when you think about the richest man on earth? Bill Gates, Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk would be some of the very first names to come to anyone's mind. According to Forbes, Elon Musk is the current richest man in the world with a net worth of approximately $240 billion, followed by Bernard Arnault, founder of luxury brand Louis Vuitton, Amazon's founder, Jeff Bezos and Microsoft founder Bill Gates, all of them having net worth ranging between $130 to $200 billion. But as most of us know that their net worth is based on the stocks held by them of their company and not the hard cash. Which means their wealth is dependent on the stock market, and a mere bad news or a decision from the government can tank their wealth in minutes. World's richest man Elon Musk is a risk taker. I mean, any of his bold moves or a crazy tweet from him can plunge the stocks of his company and his wealth as well. Jeff Bezos had already predicted that Amazon will fail someday. It will go bankrupt. Ultimately, the wealth of the wealthiest depends upon the unpredictable stock market. But was that the case in the past? There were several kings and rulers in the past whose immense wealth was the center of attraction. But the question is how rich they were. Were they as rich as the present ones? Well, the truth is none of the present billionaires by no means the richest of all time. The title of the richest man of all time is believed to belong to Mansa Musa, the 14th century West African ruler of Mali. Contemporary accounts of Musa's wealth are so breathless that it's almost impossible to get a sense of just how wealthy and powerful he truly was. Some historians believe that with an inflation-adjusted fortune, his wealth amounts to around $400 billion today, but there's lack of evidence. Some even say that he had a fortune of about $2 trillion in today's value. Mansa Musa was born in 1280 into a family of rulers. The word, Mansa, is not a first name. It's a designation which means sultan, or the king. His brother, Mansa Abu Bakr, ruled the empire until 1312, when he abdicated to go on an expedition. Abu Bakr was obsessed with the Atlantic Ocean and the world beyond it. He reportedly embarked on an expedition with a fleet of 2,000 ships and thousands of slaves. They sailed off, never to return, leaving behind his throne and one of the biggest fortunes of the world in the hands of a young king, Mansa Musa. Under his rule, the already prosperous kingdom of Mali grew dramatically. The ancient kingdom of Mali was spread across parts of modern-day Mali, Senegal, Gambia, Niger, Nigeria, Chad, Mauritania, Guinea, and Burkina Faso. Mansa Musa developed cities like Timbuktu into important cultural centers and gained control over the city of Gao, which gave him the control over the important trade routes between the Mediterranean and West African coast. With such a big landmass came huge amounts of natural resources and precious metals. The pillars of Mali's immense wealth were two things, gold and salt, both of which were in rich local supply. During the reign of Mansa Musa, the Empire of Mali accounted for almost half of the Old World's gold, according to the British Museum. Salt was one of the major commodities in Africa in the 14th century, as it was used in almost every dish, and it was also used as a preservative. Gold, on the other hand, was the safest investment. It still is. As the ruler, Mansa Musa had almost unlimited access to the most highly valued source of wealth in the medieval world. Mansa Musa was a devout Muslim, and it's every Muslim's solemn duty to undertake the Hajj at least once in his lifetime. Though the Empire of Mali was full of gold and wealth, the kingdom itself was not well known in the world. This changed when Mansa Musa decided to go on a pilgrimage to Mecca, passing through the Sahara Desert and Egypt. The Mecca is one of the 5 main pillars of Islam, and Musa decided to embark on Hajj in 1324 to 1325. But it was not an ordinary journey, it was one of the most remarkable ever made. Musa quite literally paved his path to Mecca with gold and put his kingdom on the map. Mansa Musa was accompanied by a caravan consisting of 60,000 men and women, including a personal retinue of 12,000 slaves, all clad in brocade and Persian silk. He took his entire royal court, soldiers, griots, camel drivers and 12,000 slaves, 100 elephants, 80 camels, as well as a train full of food and water for everyone. Now, if you go on a trip, you'll probably take some spending money with you, and the king was no different. The only difference was, he was the richest man ever, and his definition of spending money was 21,000 kilograms or 46,297 pounds of solid gold. Now, if you're wondering, how did he transport such a huge amount of gold? Each one of the slave carried 2 kilograms of gold and 80 camels. Each carried 300 pounds of gold. That's how easy it was. It was not just a caravan. Mansa Musa was moving with a city through the desert. The hundreds of kilometers-long caravan stretched as far as eyes could see included thousands of men, women and animals carrying thousands of kilos of pure gold was something the world has never seen before. It was a sight to behold. Mansa Musa's prodigious generosity and piety, as well as the fine clothes and exemplary behavior of his followers, did not fail to create a most favorable impression. But if you think the king was showing off his immense wealth, it's not completely true. The king didn't bring so much wealth for himself, he did for charity. He was planning to give it away. Yes, to give it all away. Mansa Musa made a stop in Cairo, Egypt on his way to Mecca. While there, he initially refused to meet the then ruler of Egypt because the tradition was to bow to the ruler of that place. But Musa insisted that he only bowed down to God. He made quite an impression on Egypt's kingdom, as officials noted that he knew the Quran and was very particular about praying on time. Mansa Musa handed so much gold to people on his way to Mecca that the charitable cause soon turned out a nightmare for the region's economy, as he handed out gold so lavishly in Cairo that his 3-month stay single-handedly caused the price of gold to plummet in the region for 12 years, wrecking the economy. It is estimated that due to the depreciation of gold, Mansa Musa's pilgrimage led to about $1.5 billion of economic losses across the Middle East. Even many of his own people were not happy about Musa spending so much gold outside his own country. Lucy Duran of the School of African and Oriental Studies in London notes that Malian griots, who are singing historian storytellers, in particular, were upset with him. He gave out so much Malian gold along the way that griots didn't like to praise him in their songs because they think he wasted local resources outside the empire. Apart from being extraordinarily rich, Mansa Musa was a very religious person. In fact, he started a tradition that on every Friday, wherever he was, he built a mosque at that particular place during his journey to Mecca. Considering that the journey was a couple of years long, so you can imagine how many mosques he built. There is no doubt that Mansa Musa spent, or wasted, a lot of gold during his pilgrimage. But it was this excessive generosity that also caught the eyes of the world. Mansa Musa had put Mali and himself on the map, quite literally. In a Catalan atlas map from 1375, a drawing shows West Africa dominated by a depiction of Mansa Musa sitting on a throne, holding a nugget of gold in one hand and a golden staff in the other. After the publication of this atlas, Mansa Musa became cemented in the global imagination as a figure of unbelievable wealth. Rulers of West African states had made pilgrimages to Mecca before Mansa Musa, but the effect of his flamboyant journey was to advertise both Mali and Mansa Musa well beyond the African continent and to stimulate a desire among the Muslim kingdoms of North Africa, and among many of European nations as well, to reach the source of this incredible wealth. Musa made his pilgrimage to Mecca, and donated huge amounts of gold in Mecca and Medina. He encountered descendants of the Prophet Muhammad and gave them lands and houses and even persuaded a few of them to return to Mali with him. Mansa Musa insisted on bringing the smartest and most talented people to his kingdom. With his immense wealth, he paid scholars, artists, teachers, architects, and people from all professions to come to Mali and contribute to the growth of the Malian kingdom. On his way back to Mali, Mansa Musa passed through Egypt again and tried to help the country's economy by removing some of the gold from circulation by borrowing it back at extortionate interest rates from Egyptian lenders. After returning to Mali, Mansa Musa began to revitalize cities in his kingdom. He built mosques and large public buildings in cities like Gao and most famously, Timbuktu. Under Mansa Musa, Timbuktu grew to be a major Islamic university center and a very important commercial city having caravan connections with Egypt and with all other important trade centers in North Africa. Mansa Musa brought architects and scholars from across the Islamic world into his kingdom, and the reputation of the Mali kingdom grew. This had an immense effect on the kingdom of Mali. The architecture of buildings in Mali began to show a mix of Spanish, Arab, and Persian design. The legendary city of Timbuktu was especially blessed by Mansa Musa's Hajj, with many mosques such as the Sankor Masjid being built by the best architects in the world. Mansa Musa even paid the Andalusian architect Abu Ishaq es-Saheli 200 kilograms of solid gold to build the Sankor Mosque in Timbuktu. Under Mansa Musa, Timbuktu grew to be a very important city. With the encouragement of trade and commerce, learning and the arts also received royal patronage. Scholars who were mainly interested in history and law were to make the Mosque of Sankor in Timbuktu a teaching center and to lay the foundations of the University of Sankor. Timbuktu became an African El Dorado and people came from near and far to have a glimpse. Ancient manuscripts describe a magical peninsula where Arabs and Africans exchanged salt for gold. A combination of wealth and knowledge. In the 19th century, explorers from Europe died trying to reach there. Timbuktu became lodged in the collective imagination as a place so extraordinary that might not exist at all. Musa's efforts and being able to pay for the best architects, scholars, and teachers made Mali, and Timbuktu in general, a center of Islamic knowledge. Mansa Musa died in 1337, aged 57, and the empire was inherited by his sons who could not hold it together. The smaller states broke off and the empire crumbled. The arrival of Europeans later in the region was the final nail in the empire's coffin. The history of the medieval period is still largely seen only as a Western history. Had Europeans arrived in significant numbers in the presence of Musa, with Mali at the height of its military and economic power instead of a couple hundred years later, things would have been different. Do you believe that Mansa Musa was a trillionaire? Who do you think will reach the $1 trillion mark in today's time? Tell us in the comments down below. Thanks for watching.